Good morning, everybody. It's December the 18th, and we're not that far from Christmas, so I'm looking forward to that. Got up this morning, and it was about 24 below zero outside this morning here in Marathon, and my poor buddy in Manitowoc, it's 40 below there, so we got some pretty cold weather going on here. That's what it's like to live in northern Canada for those people down south. But enough of the weather, and we have another project on the bench today. So I'm going to take you around and show you what's going on. So just stand by. So here we are this morning walking into my shop, folks, and excuse my my cluttered workbench. That's the way it usually looks. Anyway, what do we got back here on the bench? Anyone know yet? Well, let's slide around the front and take a look. What we have is a 1976 Fender Reverb, twin reverb that is. And you can take a look here. You can see your normal channel, two normal channels. And then we got the vibrato reverb channels over here. And there we go. I've taken the top brackets off on the top here so I can pull the tray out if I need to take a look inside. And I've also got the back cover plates off laying here, and I've got the reverb bag laying out here. You'll see why in a minute. The other thing that happened with this one, this was sold with no foot switch, so I have ordered in a brand new foot pedal for this guy that you see right here, and it's of course I forget where I got this from. It's a Fender original, so it's an original replacement from Fender. And we're going to take a walk around the back here. And I want to just show you kind of what's going on here. What the problem identified on this guy is that he's got a very weak reverb. And by that I mean if he's got his reverb set at 2, 3, 4, even up to 5, you basically can't hear the reverb at all. If you push the reverb up to 8 or 9, you've got a slight reverb, but very weak. So that's the problem. Like I say, he bought this from another fellow. He was told that all the capacitors have been replaced. I checked inside. If we get the drawer open again, I'll show you. They have been. Also told that all new tubes went in. So I'm assuming we don't have a tube problem. That's my assumption anyway. But with the reverb problem, the first thing that I always check is I go right to the input-output here for the reverb tank. I pull the cables off of the reverb, and I always check the continuity on those cables. So I make sure that my my cable, my reverb input, and my reverb output cables are not at fault. And in this case, they were fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I have them down there in that little right here in this little dish, and they metered out fine, no problem at all. Now, what happened? I test the initial reverb. This is the reverb tank that was in this unit when the fellow bought it. And unfortunately, testing, and you're going to see how you test that in a little while, but it turned out this reverb tank is defective. Now, the client also picked up a second reverb tank, which I have here, that he got from someplace. I guess somebody's stock off the shelf laying loose like this, and figured it was going to be good. I wanted a spare, but I check it. It's also defective. So the poor guy, he's got a Fender twin reverb with no reverb. He's got 2 reverb tanks, and both of them are bad. So at this point, that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to put this up on the overhead Skycam, and I'm going to show you how you meter and test these reverb tanks, so you'll know how to do that. But to make a long story short, I've ordered in a new reverb tank, and there's really nothing I'm going to do any further to troubleshoot this amp until I get a reverb tank that I know meters good and I know it's working. At that point, I'm going to continue with a problem. If there's a problem with the reverb, I'll continue shooting it at that point in time. But not now. Got to get a good tank in there first. So that's kind of where we're at with this. So this there's going to be a couple of videos on this series. This is the first one that's going to kind of show you, what the problem is and how to meter and how to test the reverb tank. And the second video is going to be showing you how to put the reverb tank back in and test it all out when it comes in. So over and out for now, and we're going to put you on the Skycam momentarily. Stand by. Before I move up to the Skycam, I'm just going to show you just what these reverb tanks look like, inside and whatnot. Some of you may have never seen a spring reverb tank taken apart or looked at to see what actually happens. But what you have here is you've got this metal box, and here you have an RCA input, and at the other end you have an RCA plug output. Okay, and every reverb tank, a spring reverb, works exactly the same way. So we're going to take a look and we're going to try to explain that just so you understand this. So what's happening is, as your signal comes into the input side of the reverb tank, what you have here is you have a little coil, this little coil here. Now it's a transducer, and what that little coil does, it's like a guitar pickup, but it works backwards. So as the sound comes in and it hits this, and there's a magnet in there, and what that magnet does, it starts these springs vibrating. Okay, and they go down, and the back and forth goes the signal. But to make a long story short, at the other end you have another coil. This little coil is taking up that back and forth vibration motion, if you will, which is actually the reverb, and it converts it back into an electrical signal, and it comes out of the output here. Okay, so if we go back to the amp, which is right behind me, so we've got the sound coming in through the RCA cable into that input that you've seen on the back of the tank, starts the vibration of those springs. The signal goes back and forth, vibrating those springs, and the coil on the other end sends that output back, and it goes into this side, which feeds back into your amplifier. That's what gives you that reverb delay effect, if you will, in the sound. So anyway, that kind of gives you an explanation of a very basic information of how these reverb tanks work. So obviously, if something goes wrong with the contact, one of these little wires are open, or something goes wrong with this coil here on this side, or likewise on this side, you're going to have a reverb problem. It's going to be the reverb's not, if one of these coils is open, completely open, you're going to have basically no reverb at all. And also these wires are pretty fine. You have to make sure that they haven't broken off and whatnot. You also see that this whole assembly is sitting on springs, so it can vibrate as well with the springs as these springs start to move. And you have to make sure that this metal tank, you can see there's springs on all four corners here that suspend that inner tank. And you have to make sure they're intact, that this thing is floating like it is freely. And the other thing I guess you want to make sure is you make sure that these springs are intact. You know, they're not broken or come apart or one come off. So that's kind of the physical inspection that you're going to do on these tanks. So this is the original that came with the amp that doesn't work. That's the spare one the guy picked up. And you can see it's basically the same thing. Very little difference between these two tanks. And what you'll find is somewhere on the tank, you'll find a number that will, if you reorder the tank, that's the number. This one is a 4A, and there's some letters in that after it. But for example, this is the one that is for a twin reverb. And there'll be different numbers here. And what you have to do is when you reorder a tank, you have to make sure you order the right number that goes with the right amp, or you're going to have a problem again with the reverb if it's not the right one. So just a little heads up on that. So hopefully that explains kind of what the reverb tank is, where you find the number to reorder it, and internally kind of what you physically look for and how the tank works. So after I've finished this little lecture here, now we're going to go up and take a look at metering this thing. So just stand by. We're back again on the Skycam, folks. So just so you know, the Accutronics, the maker of these reverb tanks, if you go to their website, you can find a chart that explains and outlines what resistance you should have through these little coils here. So in this case here, we're going to take a look. We got an A4, and on the input side, we should have 8 ohms on the input. And on the output, I'm writing this down on this paper so I don't have to go back and look at this. On the output side, we should have 500 ohms. Okay, so you can see type 4 or type 1 A, and you've got the different serial numbers. This is a 4A, so that's why I'm looking at this top line here. So we got 8 on the input and 500 on the output. So that's what we're looking for if we're going to test these coils. So we're going to first of all take a look at the original one that the fellow had here. Now if these are off, then obviously if these readings aren't within 5% of what I'm looking at here, then we have a problem with the reverb tank. So first of all, the input's on the right here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the input, and we're going to find out. Now the input's supposed to be 8 ohms. So I have my meter here. Let's take a look and see what this is. So we got 60 ohms on the input. So it's way off. So we have a problem with that coil there. And we're going to take a look at this side. What do we got on this side? On this side we got nothing. So it's dead. So yeah. So this coil on this side is absolutely open, and this one is reading way off. So we know for a fact that this tank is no good for us. So let's take a look at this one, and let's turn it around the same way, and let's look at the input side of it over here, which we should read. Let's make sure my meter is working fine. Yeah, it's working fine. What do we got on the input here? I'm reading basically, it's fluctuating between nothing and 1.2 ohms. So it's moving around all over, negative, plus. Yeah, it's moving all over. So obviously there's something wrong there as well. Let's go over here and let's take a look at this output, which should be 500 ohms. See what we got on this side. And you know what? I got nothing. Nothing at all. No reading. Yeah, I know my meter's good, I hope. Yep, meter's fine. But on this side here, absolutely nothing. So we know that this side is bad as well. Now I didn't go and show you this, but there's a little connection clip here. Hopefully you can see that right there. And what I did is I pulled this off. You can see the wires here now. And I metered the green to the green and the black to the black. And I proved that this lead, these leads and that soldered connection and those points are good. So in other words, I got no problem right into those pins. But when I plug this in here and meter across it, this coil is absolutely open. So there we go. Poor guy. He's got 2 defective reverb tanks. I'm ordering a reverb tank from Stumac. That's where I usually get them from. They handle these the exact make, and they also handle all the different model versions of this. So you can look it up and you can make sure that you get the right tank for the right amp. And I've ordered the one for the twin reverb, so it'll be in. Probably not till after Christmas. So with that, folks, we're going to be taking this repair video up probably into the new year, 2020. So wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and over and out, and see you in 2020. Well, I got a little bit of a surprise just a few minutes ago. We just had the delivery guy show up, and the Reverb tanks from StewMac have arrived. And that's the fastest I've ever seen anything arrive out of StewMac into Canada, because I only ordered it 2 mornings ago. So it's here already. So just bear with me, and I'm going to show you what we've got. Hold on. So, yep, well, the box has arrived, and inside of it we have ourselves a reverb tank. And I have it right here in front of me, brand new. And there's the order from StewMac right there. And yep, and brand new tank. And I already checked the number. The number on it is correct. And I ordered another one. So now up on my stock shelf here, and that box right there, wrapped up in paper, keep it clean, I have a spare reverb tank sitting there right now. So next time I have this model here is for basically, I think the 68 Deluxe Custom Deluxe reissue. That's a 22 watt amp. It's only got the one speaker in it. The whole bunch of those reissues. This antique one here, this vintage one I got is got this too, but I believe the twin reverb reissue also uses the same tank. So I thought I'd keep a spare one up there, so which is a good thing. Next time someone come in with a bad reverb tank, at least I got something to test with. So anyways, let's take a look at this guy and see what kind of a meter we're going to get if we take a look and see what these coils are going to read on this tank here, and hopefully we should be off to the races. So I'm going to go to the Skycam, so just hold on. So hopefully you can see that okay. By the way, I also ordered a new set of RCA cables as well. These guys here that's got the ground on it as well. So I think we're going to probably put them in a little bit more dependable than those other ones. So let's see what we got going on here. Actually, now with this we can meter right from here if we want, because these are hooked right in. Let's see what we got going on here. Gonna take a look at this this side first. See what the outcome is on the meter. Tricky when they're like that. This thing doesn't want to stay out of my way here. See if I can get this to go somewhere there. Get it out of my road. Yeah, so that coil is not open like the other one. And let's go to the other side. See what we got on this side here now. And that one's not open either. So right now, from the look of it, we got 2 coils that are that look okay. This is good news. This little ground wire here, sometimes they suggest that it's a good idea to ground the chassis of this guy, and then you can ground the other side up to the chassis of the box where the tubes are. So you know what? I'm thinking I'm going to do that. I need a little screw to do that. So I'll tell you what, while I look around for a little screw, I'm going to put this on pause, and then we'll be back to you in a moment. Well, so what I did is I used one of these little guys like this, little eyelet, little crimper, and put that on the end of the wire, ground wire. There's already a screw I noticed on here, so I didn't have to drill or find a screw. There's one here that I could use. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put a couple cable ties up here, keep this out of the way, so it's not flopping in the breeze, so to speak. You know, don't really have to do this, but want it to look neat, so what the heck. Put a few of these on up to here. Should be fine. And this cable here, well, they aren't too good. Broke right off. That's okay. Put one more on here. Come on. That one's good. So that's that. So all we got to really do now is put the reverb tank into the amp, plug it in, and see what we're going to find out with this new tank in here. And hopefully it's going to work out okay. So I'm going to just take this webcam off of here for now and give you a side view so you can see what's going on. So hold on. Well, hopefully you can get a good look at the back of this now. And so here's what we got looking like on the back of this thing. We've got the RCA cables plugged in. We've got the, let me take a look here. I'll make sure I get this the right way around. Hard to see. Put my glasses on. Okay, the red is output. So the red is going to go to the output side here. So we're going to put this back in the reverb bag. But just so you know, usually on the bottom there is a piece of cardboard that sits on the bottom of this tank like this. Just as a little bit of protection, I guess, for those reverb springs in there. And we're gonna try to squeeze this all back in this bag, hopefully. If I can get the bag to open up, that is. Squeeze it back in there, being careful with the cords and the RCA cables. There we go. So that's going to sit in the bottom of this tank now. The one thing I want to just mention though, these cables here, if you have, I've seen people put these cables in like 6-7 feet long, all wound up in here, wound up inside, cable tied in. This is like an antenna. So, you know, on a situation like this, you want to try to keep these cables as short as possible. You want it, you know, so it easily reaches up here, but you certainly don't want 6 feet of this this cable hanging around in here. So I've got a fairly short cable, which is no big deal, but just so you know kind of why I've got that short cable. And I'm going to put this reverb tank in there like that. And this should just hopefully come up. Red goes in output right here. And the white goes on the input here. And we should be in a situation here, hopefully, where this is going to fit. Just like, kind of like that. And I think we're not too bad off there. So the other thing that we usually do here is we can put a couple of screws on this bag at the ends. And all that's going to do is you move the amp back and forth and tilt it. It's going to stop this tank from flopping around inside the base here. So I'm going to go ahead and look for a couple of screws, and I'm going to screw that to the base, and I'll be back in a moment. So just hold on. Well, Fender amp fans, I've got this all buttoned up so far, so I'm just going to kind of show you what this looks like when it's done. So you can see I put, there's the screws I was talking about. I got one in that side. And let me get the light over here a bit more. And you can see I have another screw in here. So all that's really doing is that's stopping this reverb tank from moving around in there. And it's in a really solid, you know, bag, and it's not gonna get jarred. Hopefully, when you obviously if you drop the amp on the floor, it might get jarred, but normal movement should not make that move around. And you know, I've got the cable coming up. It's a short cable. It comes up. Got it going into the reverb input here. And you can also see I've got that little ground wire that I've wired in. And if I get this, you can see where I've just went in there with that ground wire. And I've put it right to the chassis. You know, I ran into a funny thing there with another job. And I had a guy that had a 68 Deluxe reverb, not a twin reverb, the 68 Deluxe. And he had a hum every time he turned his reverb up past 6 or 7. And for the life of me, fiddle diddle with that darn thing, trying to figure why that hum was happening. And the funny thing was, I put a ground wire from this chassis down to that reverb tank, and that was the end of the hum problem. It never came back. So generally, you know, I'm looking at these RCA cables. They got this ground wire, I guess, on there for a reason. I don't see anywhere where it says in the specs to ground that reverb tank, because I think they figure it's grounded right through the plug here on the RCA plug. But for whatever reason, I usually attach that ground wire and set it up just like that, so the tank's grounded right to the chassis. So all that's left to do now is to fire this thing up. And keep in mind, you got to be careful. You never fire these guys up unless you've got the speaker plugged in for a load. And you never want to fire this up unless you got this reverb tank plugged in. Because I've heard that it can cause damage. I've never had a problem with it because I've always plugged them in. But I've heard other people that may have had problems by firing up the amplifier without the speaker load on, or without the reverb tank plugged in. So just a word of caution. So I'm going to stop this right now, and we're going to plug in a guitar. In the next little video, we're going to see what happens with this reverb sound. Over and out. Well, it's December the 20th, so we're only a few days to Christmas, and this is the following morning. Going to be testing this Fender amp over here and see what it sounds like. But before that, I'm just going to take you over there and just show you a couple little things. So stand by. So here we go. There it is. I still got the back covers off. They're laying there now. And the other thing I did is I did a really good cleanup job on this thing. It was dirty inside and out, so we got her all polished up, conditioned. She looks almost like brand new. The only thing that I've looked at is these guys. The top brackets are really rusted bad. I tried to clean them up, but there's no way. So I've ordered some new top brackets for this amp that are going to come in. Straps in good shape. Also, I've ordered some new dials. I've got 2 or 3 of these that have really faded and gone yellow, so I got a new set of dials coming in for this guy. Originals, by the way, so hopefully they're going to be in good shape. And just go around the back here before we plug this thing in. You can see what we got going on here now. Like I say, I've got the reverb tank installed. I just plugged in the foot switch laying right there into the back. And at this point, I've got the power on. I'm going to power up, put her on. Going to let the tubes warm up for a minute or two. And at that point, I'll put her off, take it off of standby mode and see what the heck we got going on here. So I'll be back in a minute and we're going to hear it. Hold on. Well, I've got the thing warmed up there. Let it sit for 2 or 3 minutes, and plugged in my my Les Paul here. I'm going to play on. It's got 57 pickups on it, so we got a vintage guitar pickup to go with a vintage amp. And what I have right now, as far as I'm plugged into the vibrato reverb number one, plug number one here. There's two. On this amp here, you don't get reverb over on the normal side. So without a mod, you know, if you want to get the reverb or the vibrato, you got to be on the right-hand side panel in order to get it. What I've got the reverb set at 4. I've got everything, volume, treble, middle. I got 333. I got the speed. I don't think these really matter. I got everything at 3 except the reverb at 4. So we're going to see what we got going here now. Reverb really nice on that now. That sounds really nice. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, put it down to about 2.5. Put it to 4. That's reverb at 4. For that tank replacement, we had no reverb at all at the 3 or 4. There was nothing. You wouldn't hear it at all till you got up to 8 or 9. I'm gonna put it up to 5 now. I'm gonna put the reverb up to 5. Reverb switch off. Reverb switch on. So I guess, friends, that looks like the end of the problem with the twin reverb with no reverb. So you all have a great Christmas, and we'll see you hopefully in 2020. Bye-bye.